What's going on, everybody? What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Texas League Video Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Dwayne Debo Morrow, owner of the last place team finished in last place in the regular season. I think this is my second time that's happened to me in the league where I finished in dead last, maybe third. If I second or third, I finished the regular season dead last, but it be like that sometimes. Co-host, please let them know who you are.
Jared Cowan, the commissioner, and I did make it into the playoffs. I am not in 12th. I actually finished in third, but we'll talk about how I got to third a little bit later.
Absolutely. All right. So our third co-host is currently at a company function. So shout out to Dr. Deuce. He also did not make the playoffs this year. It was not a good year for him and I, fantasy-wise, but he did finish one game in front of me, so that son of a gun has a one-game bragging right in the regular season for now until next year. All right, Jared, what's this week's kickoff question?
Oh, we have reached the fantasy playoffs. And so, I listen to podcasts all day at work. Question came up, if you could change one thing about your draft, what would it be? So I wanted to trim it down to your first 3 rounds. If you could look at your first 3 rounds,
okay.
And what would you change? If you need to go back and see what you did in the first 3 rounds, you can go draft results and you can see.
Oh yeah. I'm doing that right now.
How the draft went.
Since I know
while you look at that and make a decision. Let me clarify that. Let's pretend that you have Gray's Sports Almanac from Back to the Future, and you know how the season's going to turn out. If you're looking back at your draft, who might you have drafted instead of someone you drafted? For example, I reached out to our third co-host, and he said he would have drafted Keenan Allen instead of Mike Williams, because if you pull up the draft, with the 11th pick of the second round, he drafted Mike Williams, and then my cousin took Keenan Allen with the last pick of the second round. So Keenan Allen was still there for him.
Right.
For myself, I think what I would have done, not necessarily from a draft standpoint, was I gave up some draft capital to acquire Austin Eckler. He has not been who I thought he was going to be this year. So give me that draft capital back, and I could have easily drafted, I don't know, anyone else who might have been more consistent for my team from a running back standpoint.
Indeed. For me, I would have kept Mike Evans instead of Josh Jacobs. I would have drafted Alvin Kamara early, even with the suspension. I would have drafted him early, and I would have also taken, or I should have taken Amari Cooper or Alvin Kamara with my first official pick, and I would have avoided Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
So those are about 3. I would have changed. I would have kept. I would have. I kept Evans. Drafted either Kamara or Amari Cooper early, and I would have avoided Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
But all right, good question. So usually we do sort of a little lead-in question, but I'm leading that for after we talk for the end, after we talk about playoffs. So let's get into it, because last week was week 14 and it was the final week of the regular season. And although some of us had already been mathematically eliminated, we did have a couple of games last week that were that had effect on the final standings, as well as some people needed to win to get in, and some people needed help. So let's take a look at last week's games. So first game we'll take a look at is the team who's either been in first or second place throughout the season needed to win. All she had to do was get a win, and she secured her first place finish. And what has been par for the course for me this season, I coin flipped and picked the wrong quarterback to start. Matt Stafford came out blazing. He scored 27. Jordan Love only scored 11. And that helped the Big Green secure a first place overall and a first round bye going into the playoffs. Even with the terrible performance by the Tua and Tyreek combo, who were shocked, I say shocked, by the Tennessee Titans on Monday night in a game that they lost with a 2-touchdown lead with 3 minutes on the clock. So Titans pulled off another Music City miracle. Rest in peace, Frank Wycheck, on Monday night to shock the Dolphins. But it was enough to get her the W. So shout out to Big Green, our champion from 2 years ago, as she tries to get back to the top of the championship circle. Next game that had playoff implications. So, Jared, break down your game versus the ever name changing Bench, Burrow, and Steele.
Oh, Bench, Burrow, and Deal. Okay. Let's start with CJ Stroud, 3 points. Amon St. Brown, 3 points. It just was not a very good game. It was not a good week for my team. You know, James Cook did what he could to try to keep us in it, but overall, it was not my week.
I'm just curious
thanks to some other people in the league.
the 1 week that you should have played Puka and Cup together.
Yeah. Even if I play them both, I still don't win.
No, but I mean, you know, it would have definitely been closer. But hey, you still were able to secure the playoff seed number 3. So congratulations to you and your journey into the playoffs.
You know, as I say, you gotta get a little help from your friends.
Indeed. So 2 boobs, 2 balls, 1 goal, and math is king. Neither one of them going into the playoffs, even though 2 boobs, 2 ball, after having a rough start to the season, ended the season with a respectable 6-8 record. But since that game had no playoff implications, we shall skip it. Now, this is one of the heartbreaker games of the week. Go ahead, Jared, break it down for us.
Not for me.
No, not for you. But
you know,
company man.
Ed Corn had a 0 at tight end and still pulled off the W.
I mean,
now, yeah, you know, Raheem Mostert with 22.5 points in a losing effort. Deebo Samuel with 32.5. That'll help.
Right. So
because that's
poor company man, because you know, just so you guys know, as you notice, Jared at 7-7 made the playoffs as a 3 seed because he was the winner of his division. Much like the AFC South, our particular division was the weakest link this year in terms of divisional games. Hey, listen, we call it what it is when we see it. So I mean, let's just keep it
We
real.
we were a competitive division.
We were a very competitive division where only one of us made the playoffs, and that happened to be the division leader. Company man wins that game, and we have a different person from our division going to the playoffs. And potentially Jared doesn't make the playoffs. So winning your division definitely was better than not winning the division in this case.
I definitely agree. That's fine.
All right. So, and again, in the next game, we have Kirkwood, the defending champion, who has been in the fight for first or second place all season, and one of the two buys going into the playoffs, going up against Super Mario Cristobal, who needed a win and some help to make the playoffs. Now, if you look at the results of his team, quarterback broken thumb out for the season. Wide receiver one for his QB wide receiver combo knocked out of the game. Somehow, some way, still held on to get the win he needed because of a very poor showing overall by Kirkwood's team, especially Jalen Hurts. Nico Collins got hurt. Basically, it's all about timing. And so if you're going to have a game where you only score 81 and you need to make the playoffs, it's a very helpful thing for your opponent to only score 73. So shout out to Super Mario Cristobal. He's been fighting tooth and nail to get that last playoff spot, and that's where he ended up with was playoff spot number 6. So, and then in our last playoff matchup, Muff Divers, who was picked as the draft winner by the Yahoo AI, who our outside draft analyst selected his team as the best team that they would prefer to take over and run this season. Muff Divers versus Hanging with Hernandez. Now, Hanging with Hernandez also was a team that was going to, and with the win, was going to be 7-7, and potentially with some help and some tiebreakers get into the playoffs. But didn't happen. Jared, break it down.
Brock Purdy had a good game for him. Lamar Jackson had a better game. Mike Evans did not have a very good game. Well, let's be real. That was a trash game.
Right.
Atlanta said, I watched that game. Atlanta said, we will not let you beat us today. But they let Rachaad White beat them. So it was kind of a trade-off. He had both players, but like Sam Laporta, who's been strong, didn't come through today.
Man, Detroit looked horrible in that game against Chicago.
Who are you telling? I had one day, Adams' team picked a good week to go off because he got everybody put up a solid performance except for that kicker, but you can live without the kicker. Right. Everybody else puts up a performance, and that was enough for him to win the high score of the week and
secure his playoff spot. So there we have it. Our 6 teams that are going into the playoffs. So we are only going to do picks for the playoff game. Although our league does do a consolation bracket that actually does have some reward for winning it. You do get $25 towards your entry fee next year if you're in the losers bracket, but we ain't finna waste time with us losers this year. So we have 2 games to pick this week. We're going to start with Ed Corn versus Muff Divers. Jared, who do you like in this game?
Oh, I am going to go with Muff Divers here. I might regret it, but I'm going to go with Muff Divers because Lamar Jackson versus Jacksonville. Jacksonville has not been great. They've been, Don't, because for some reason we're getting later into the season, and this is normally where the Dallas Cowboys slowly start to hit that decline. They're playing Buffalo. It's supposed to be cold, and any team that plays in a dome when going outside usually doesn't play as well.
You think they're going to ship their own benches to Buffalo like they did against Washington last year?
One of the principals at my job is going. He said it's supposed to be 37 degrees on Saturday. Is it Saturday or Sunday? Yeah. It's supposed to be 37 degrees this weekend.
Let me tell you about
37 degrees is
let me tell you
miserable
about how
football.
let me tell you about how fast I slapped those tickets up on StubHub, Tick Pick, whatever you want to call it. No, thank
I don't know. He spends a lot of time in Canada and stuff, so he okay with the cold. Me, no, I'm good. He an
you.
East Coast dude originally. And no, I'm not going to go there. No.
Yeah, I'm from Wisconsin originally, and I avoid the cold as much as I can. Being
No.
able to withstand it and deliberately going into it are two very different things. And I ain't gonna be able to do it.
No, I'm gonna pass.
I am not gonna be able to do it, my friend.
We went to Minnesota only because they got a dome. I'm not going outside. I'm not here for. I just think that this is Muff Diver's year to finally make some noise in the playoffs. Plus, if I'm not mistaken, if he wins this matchup, he would get. I think he would get to play his wife in the.
So
I think he would get to play his wife in the next round for pure comedic value.
Let's see here.
I don't know how I feel about that Justin Jefferson player in the flex. I don't know. I wouldn't play him, but that's just me. He came back, got hurt.
I don't think Jefferson. I think that I don't know. I don't think they want to rush Jefferson back for this season. I don't know. I see what you're saying about Muff Diver's team. I just think that Lamar Jackson is the X factor player, right? So as you saw last week, put up 40. He's also had games where he's put up 16 this season.
That's true.
Now he's playing at Jacksonville, sunny state, prime time. Balance of probability says Lamar Jackson has a decent game. I think that top to bottom, though, I think Acorn's team is more solid. So I'm going to go with Acorn in this matchup. So I'm not sure who Dr. Deuce is going to roll with unless he texts you. But so
I did not get his pick, but
that's okay. So
he probably at the Christmas party drinking, like most people do.
Yes, as they should. So
I'll be at mine drinking.
So we have a one of us is going to be right in the first game. Now, in a matchup of cousin on cousin in our other first round game, Stairway to Evans versus Super Mario Cristobal. Now, Joe Flacco is not officially signed. He was relegated back to the practice squad of Cleveland. So I had not seen if there was an update on his status as of today. But when you have one quarterback on IR and one quarterback on the practice squad, let's see if do they have a message about what's going on with him?
It's merely procedural. That's all it says.
So it's more than likely they're going to re-sign him, because what was the point of you signing him initially if you weren't going to play him for the rest of the season? So I think he'll still have Flacco.
He should be there.
Defense. So this is going to be, who is their backup? Who is the Chargers' backup quarterback?
Easton Stick or something. I don't know. I can't.
Even going up against my Raiders, I without having a solid quarterback, I don't think that this is going to be good for him. Hawkinson's got a favorable matchup, but I think that I'm going to go with Stairway to Evans. Better hope CJ Stroud comes the uh, off of the concussion protocol, because Desmond Ridder, in the terms of topsy-turvy quarterbacks this season, we've seen how that's gone. So
he gets the Panthers.
he is against the Panthers. If you have to play, if you have to play Ridder, he does get the Panthers. So it's not a terrible matchup. But either way, I think I'm gonna roll with Stairway. So I think I'm gonna roll with Stairway to Evans in this particular matchup.
I need something. Me and quarterbacks don't normally get along too well. We just always have horrible relationships.
Well, when you spent your whole life chasing them and hitting them, tackling them, and things like that, sometimes it just spills over into reality. It makes it stranger than fiction. So, all right. So we concur on the other playoff matchup. So that brings me to my question, which is looking at the injuries this year. How do you think that it's going to, like? I would say, which position group do you think is going to have the biggest impact on the fantasy playoffs? Quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs? Because we have seen a large number of season-ending injuries from all three of those categories this year.
For me, it's got to be quarterback, because every other position, you have multiple players coming in and out of the game. You only got one quarterback playing every game. And when you lose your quarterback, there's no guarantee that your backup is going to be good and is going to be consistent. Because 9 times out of 10, no one knows who the backup quarterback is for most teams, unless you have a Jets situation where Aaron Rodgers came in, so we know who the previous quarterback was. Only reason we know who the Browns quarterback is because they signed Joe Flacco. Most backup quarterbacks just ride the pine and collect checks.
Indeed.
And when they come in, you normally don't get the same type of production. They normally target different people because they go target wide receiver 3s because that's what they practice with.
That's they throw to in practice, right?
Yeah, and tight ends, like, oh, I know that guy, and throw him the ball, and they might be good. Like Josh Dobbs came in, he was good for a couple weeks, then he kind of just did what he normally does, just fade away into obscurity. Okay, for a couple weeks, and he fades away. Like I said, the Chargers are starting Easton Stick. Does anyone know who Easton Stick is? I don't.
Never, literally.
But I would like to say.
Now, there's some backup quarterbacks that I've heard of. He is not one of them. I've never heard of this brother. So
I'm about to Google him because I'm now intrigued. Where the hell did Easton Stick go to school?
Well, in a piece of non-football related news that just popped across my screen, Draymond Green.
State, out of curiosity.
Oh, okay. I wonder if he played. He must have played with my nephew. Oh, you know what? Huh. What year is this?
2014 or 2019?
No, you know what? He graduated the year my nephew got there. He graduated the spring. My nephew got there in the fall of 19. So he would have graduated in the spring of 19. So, okay, cool. Well, good luck to the young man. I hope Max Crosby and him have several meetings in the backfield on Thursday night in that game. But as I was saying, in a piece of non-NFL related news that just popped across my screen, Draymond Green suspended indefinitely by the NFL after slapping a member of the Phoenix Suns in the game last night. So, yeah, I thought they were going to hit him at least with a 20 piece that he would appeal down to 10. But they said enough is enough.
Multiple altercations.
I said it earlier this season. Well, really, I said this last year, and it's been magnified this year. As Draymond's specific skill sets and contribution to his team has diminished, his bad boys Pistons style of play has increased. And while that might have been acceptable in the 80s and early 90s, the current NBA is not having it. No. So, I don't care how much you admire Charles Oakley back in the day. Ain't no Charles Oakley's in the NBA right now.
What you're saying is he can't be the Black Bill Laimbeer?
No matter how hard he tries. All right. So, which games do you like this weekend in terms of fantasy playoff implications?
First, we got to start with tomorrow's night game, not for fantasy purposes, for the 1 week wager that is always on the line for this game.
Here's the thing. We actually don't have a wager on the line for this game because we always reaffirm it every game.
Hold on. I got a text. Let me.
We always reaffirm it each game. We never make the assumption of the bet.
I have a text message that says the bet is still on.
He has not texted me. He has not texted me and said that. and the reason why I wasn't assuming is because he's got a backup quarterback going in this week. So
he said, you know what? You need to confirm that tomorrow. He told me the bet is still on, but like I said, you need to get your confirmation so y'all on the same page. But from a fantasy standpoint, actually, this game is not for fantasy purposes. This is just for me being 100% petty. The Texans are going to Nashville, and the Titans are wearing the Orleans throwback jerseys. Okay, just want to say that. But to actually answer the question that was asked, I am going with Washington at the Rams. This seems like it is going to be a high-scoring game.
Because both defenses are basura.
Because Washington's secondary... Washington, it don't look like this past week's game between the Rams and the Ravens. Start all of your Washington players. Start all.
Oh man, Jerry, I'm sorry, you were breaking up. You were completely breaking up, man. So, but I heard you say Washington and LA. Start everybody because it's going to be a high-scoring game. I am going to. I think that the Titans versus the Texans game is also one of fantasy implications because it's Derrick Henry. He's at home versus an AFC South opponent. Usually that spells 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. So if you have Derrick Henry and you're in the playoffs and you got a game this week, you should be very happy to see who his first round opponent is. And if I'm not mistaken, don't they also play the Texans again in what would generally be championship week of playoff league? So if you got Derrick Henry and you can get to your championship game with him, just hold on because you should have some good results. But I also think that Dallas Buffalo game is going to have some good results for fantasy playoff implications. So, well, there we have it. So the bet is on. I'll confirm with Dr. Deuce. But otherwise, best of luck to the 4 teams that are facing off against each other this week in the Texas League playoffs. For those 6 of us who are not in the playoffs, don't just throw in the towel. Remember, we still playing for a little bit of pride until you get knocked out. of the of the consolation bracket, but even in the consolation bracket, you don't want to be an early loser. So best of luck to you. Unless your team is facing mine, Go Raiders and the Los Angeles Sparklers, aka the Chargers, absolutely suck. And that's how I end it. All right, until next week,
I
fellas.
expect nothing less, sir.
You already know.